Welcome back to episode 37 of Tallboy Radio. And if the voice sounds slightly different, it's Gaz. I'm in charge tonight. I'm hosting. Thoroughly enjoyed hosting the last one. And I'm looking forward to this. So before we get into the nitty gritty, if you want to introduce yourself, tell us what you're drinking. Andy, do you want to go first?
Hello. I'm on the old Rosie in a BR glass.
A BR odd at.
A BR odd at, yeah. Sort of official merch, but not quite. Adam, what are you drinking?
Well, I picked one, and when we were younger, I always used to enjoy a beer called Facts because it was in a litre can. So I've got a litre can of Facts, but I have a different beer for every podcast. I've had that one before. So this is the Facts 10% beer. What could possibly go wrong? And John, who's my brother, I know if you're listening, he always used to love the original Facts. Try this one out. Actually gets a little bit better as you go on.
Really? I tried a little bit earlier, and it wasn't great.
What size is that? That can looks massive.
It's a litre. It's a litre can.
And I am drinking what's rapidly becoming my favourite TBR drink, which is Hoegaarden. And I do have it in a TBR podcast glass, as opposed to Andy's, who says something completely different. I don't know whether or not anybody has any shout outs or anyone that they want to mention. I just want to give a quick shout out, as always, Tiddy and Shiner, who are friends over in the States. They always seem to give us a sort of retweet. I know there's been various conversations between Tiddy and Shiner. Thank you for your feedback on the episode to do with food and who your perfect ideal guests would be and what meal you would cook. And I wish I was in a position to try your food because it sounded fantastic.
And have Gary Busey at the table.
And Gary Busey was at the table, and I believe he said the party would not start until Gary Busey arrived.
This is true.
So again, thanks to those guys. Just a thanks to Dave from Double Trouble again, who regularly sort of retweets our social media stuff. So big shout out to them. Look forward to catching up with you guys shortly. I think Adam and Andy in particular are looking forward to catching up with you for your various tasting sessions that are going on. Adam, don't know if there's anyone else you want to give a shout out to?
No, I only had the one myself, and to be honest, because we've started recording this one a little bit later than usual, thanks to Mr. Andrews' work commitments. I was going to give Tiddy and Shana a mention because I've drank most of the beer while we were waiting for him. I'm going to be moving on to my whiskey in. Oh, there's only 3 of these glasses in existence. It's a Tiddy and Shana whiskey glass. So yeah, I was just going to give Tiddy and Shana a big shout out.
Superb. Andy, anyone you want to mention? Anyone you want to say hello to? Any shout outs?
Well, there's the unofficial PR guy, Bill.
Yeah,
who actually has been in communication with us tonight with a couple of ideas for future episodes of the podcast. So yeah.
Did you want to share that idea?
No, not at the moment.
Did you want to partake in that idea?
No, not at the moment. Whether Bill wants to or not.
I'm not a Twitter user, but there's a few people that do retweet our stuff as well. So Bloody Bits,
yes,
Lime Link,
and
a couple of others as well. So I'll mention you next time.
Purposely Curious.
Purposely Curious. Yes. Jim Elliard as well. Sort of. He retweets quite a lot. So yeah. So basically, anybody that is out there that sort of retweets us, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Just on a swift side note, I mentioned in the last podcast that if for all of you that don't realise and don't know, I'm a massive Chicago Bears fan. We are actually now officially 3-0.
As are the Steelers.
As are Adam's Steelers. Can't quite say the same for Andy's team.
Man United or?
Don't mention them.
Don't mention them either.
But strangely, Bears were sort of down by quite a lot in the fourth quarter, and Nick Foles, not Nick Knowles, who's a completely different person. Nick Foles got us out of the mire, and we beat the Falcons. So Bears are now 3-0, and we are definitely on the march to the playoffs. Don't look at me like that, dude. Don't look at that. We got a couple of winnable games coming up, so fingers crossed. But as we've promised before we will do a bit of an update on the NFL at some point. So swiftly moving on then. And this episode, I sort of thought about it for sort of a while ago, really. We've all been to various sort of places in the world. We've all had various experiences. So it's basically just a bit of a mishmash of what are all of our experiences and what are our favourite places we visited. Were places, did they supersede your expectations? Did they not quite live up to your expectations? So I'm going to go first as the host for tonight. And I'm going to say that my favourite city that I visited overseas is Sydney in Australia. So I went there when I was much younger as part of a cricket tour and just had the most fantastic experience. Everything about it was brilliant. The sights were brilliant. The people were lovely and friendly. Loads to do. So I'm just going to throw it out there first. As an overseas city, Andy, what's your favourite overseas city you've been to and why?
I'd probably go with Bruges. Got waffles, beer. What else do you want? That's that simple. I mean, it's just one of them cities where you just like, it's a really old classical style city or town. Cobbled streets everywhere, and it's got really traditional bars and restaurants and stuff like that. So, it's got to be that, I think, for me.
Cool. Adam?
Probably guess mine, can't you?
I can guess yours.
Yeah. It's funny enough, when you said about places that superseded your expectations, the first time I visited Vegas, which I would say is probably my favourite overseas city, unsurprisingly, it was for my brother's wedding. So John said he was getting married out there. Gave us about 6 months notice to get the money together for it. That's John. That's the way he does stuff, so we shouldn't be too surprised. But yeah, I got there and I thought, it's never been a place that I was that interested in visiting. I've been to New York before and love New York. And mainly I've enjoyed visiting sort of the historical sites in Europe. But as soon as I got there, it is a city that is built for adults, like a Disneyland for adults. Literally everything that you want to do that you could possibly do is available on a 3-mile strip, and if you need to, then you can't find it, then there's Fremont Street as well. And yeah, Vegas, absolutely love Vegas.
It's weird because it is a place that I would love to go. I obviously have a slight addictive personality. I do like the odd flutter every now and then, so it might be quite dangerous. And whenever me and Jenny sort of talk about Vegas, she's like, yeah, well, you need to make sure you don't sell the house, you don't sell the kids, you don't sell various other sort of assets that we have and stuff. But I would love to go. It's 100% on my bucket list.
Whenever we've gone, and you'll see the people gambling, and we will go to bed 2-3 o'clock in the morning. We just go to the bars, like, instead of don't gamble. And you see the people at the table, and then you come down for breakfast, and you'll still see them, and you'll just say, "Morning, guys,"
and that's it. It'll be like, just more 10, just one more, just a bit more. But yeah, so and look, I get the impression that Vegas is somewhere that you can go hard gambling, you can do just sit and I think I've said this sort of story before. One of my friends went to Vegas as a younger person, and at the same time his boss went, and they didn't know they were going at the same time. And when they got back, they talked about the holidays, and they said, "Oh, we've both been to Vegas," and they both had 2 completely different holidays. So the lad and his sort of wife now, but girlfriend at the time, they were sort of out late at night, very early mornings. They were doing the club scene, they were doing all the bars and all that sort of stuff. And his boss, who was a lot older, him and his wife, they did a lot of the touristy bit. So they did the helicopter stuff and the Grand Canyon stuff and all of that. And they literally compared notes, and they had 2 just completely wildly different holidays in exactly the same place at exactly the same time.
Oh, we've been 5 or 6 times, and literally we've not. There's very few things that we've done twice. And we go for 10 days at a time.
Yeah, you see, it's interesting. So, what's the maximum length of time you could be there then?
Well, 10 days, if you speak to anybody there, people will consider that a long trip. Most people go for 4 or 5 days. That's your normal visit. Yeah. But I always sort of think, if I'm going to have to fly on a plane for 10.5 hours, which is what it is if you fly direct, and we've only done that twice, every other time we've changed elsewhere, But 10.5 hours on a plane, I ain't going to do that for just 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
If I get there, then I think I'm going to do this again in 4 days.
Yeah, the first day is a bit like, okay, yeah. I sort of get that. Interestingly, I'm obviously doing a bit of sort of research and stuff, and the Las Vegas Strip, and I take a little bit of sort of umbrage with it, but the Las Vegas Strip is, if you class it collectively as an attraction, is the attraction in the world that attracted the most visitors in 2020.
42 million is the normal amount of visitors. I don't know what it was this year.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Now, a lot of those are national, and we'll get onto some figures in a minute in terms of the most visited cities, most visited countries and stuff. But Vegas as an attraction, so that strip was the most visited, and then you get places behind it. So you get places like the Eiffel Tower, and you get sort of Grand Canyon, and actually there's a couple of places that you wouldn't normally put in that list, and I wouldn't necessarily put Las Vegas Strip as number one, but it was the place that was visited.
It's the number one tourist destination in the world.
Yeah. So, but it's strange, because does that mean that there's lots of different attractions and they are effectively grouped together because they all belong on that 3 mile whatever it is strip? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, basically, literally anything you can imagine that you can do in a number of hotels down the line. And literally, you see these hotels, and until you actually see them in the flesh, they'll take 10 minutes to walk past. That's just how big they are, honestly. And when you talk about the gambling side of things, well, we talked about gambling last time. But in terms of it all, if you are a United States citizen, obviously, same as you do here, you'll pay your tax to the national government and to your local government. If you live in Nevada, there is no state tax.
Yeah.
You pay zero. So our equivalent in the UK of council tax, because they earn that much from the casinos. They don't have to charge the residents.
Yeah, don't need to. Yeah, and I mean, you get some various sort of seedy stories about where the money goes from the casinos and all of that, but it must be great to think, we just don't pay any taxes. So we earn so much money as a state. It's just like, you know what? Yeah, it's fine. It's cool. Absolutely. So okay, so we've got Bruce. We have a European city and we have an American city. Here's a question for you then. Each of those places, did you know about them before you went, and I sort of think I know the answer for you. I'm not so sure about you, Andy. So did you know about those places before you went, and was that the reason you went, or was it a place that you sort of stumbled across and then it became your favourite? So Andy, do you want to go first?
I'd probably say stumble across, because not weirdly enough, not many people know about Brussels, even though it's like the capital of Europe. So I only went Bruges just because. Actually, no, I've been Bruges before. I lived there in Brussels, but that was only because we were going to watch the MotoGP in Assen in Holland, so we drove up through it. But other than that, no, I didn't really know about it until I lived in Brussels, and I was saying to Amy, like, "Oh, we'll get the train and go there one day," and it's like dirt cheap. It's like an hour and a half train journey for like €50 for 2 people in first class and stuff. So it's like, yeah, do that. And just get tanked up on beer and stuff. It's decent. It was like, that was as a day trip. So we lived in a busy city, Brussels, and you go out. It's like, it's still a busy city, but yeah, it wasn't one that I pre-planned or anything like that. It's just like, oh, that's nearby. That was quite nice and stuff like that.
Yeah, because it's weird, because sort of knowing Adam, and obviously now knowing his love for Vegas, sort of growing up, I'd probably never have thought that would have been a place that you would have even thought to go to. Not necessarily gambling addiction or anything like that. And it was weird. So what was it? John's wedding that drew you there, or was it a place that you always felt as though you wanted to go to? Or
no, if it hadn't been for my brother getting married there, I never would have visited the place.
Yeah.
So I internally grateful for him for introducing me to the place. Obviously, I visited Bruges and I visited Brussels with Andy. Actually, to be fair, we had a holiday there, and obviously Kim and Amy came along as well, apparently. And it's just me and Andy on the beer. That's all I really remember for those holidays. But no, never would have visited Vegas if it wasn't like it. Just did not appeal. we were talking before we started, and we joked, and you described it as Blackpool of the North, and that was my opinion. I've been to Blackpool, didn't much care for it.
Yeah,
I've got no desire to go there.
Yeah. And it is weird because I would love to go, and I think it's somewhere that I've always wanted to go, but I think from chatting to you and the experiences that you've had, there's loads of different types of experiences you can have when you're there. So it's not just you go for the same. You don't just go for the casinos. You can go for lots of different shows, and you can go for the bars and the restaurants and all of that sort of stuff. So
maybe we do a TBR Vegas 2021.
We need to.
How many trips have we got for 2021? Oh my God, I'm trying to bankrupt
I'd
us.
scratch them all off for that one. I tell you what, any excuse to go back to Vegas.
Tom Jones. Celine Dion, TBR.
Well, not Celine Dion. I draw the lines.
Barry Manilow.
Yeah. No, I draw the line there too.
Was it Mark? You
Mark
went to see Barry Manilow, didn't you?
Yeah. No, I didn't go to see Barry. Yeah, we went to see Tom Jones because obviously being half Welsh, I wanted to go see Tom Jones, and he did.
See Rod Stewart as well.
I saw Rod Stewart on my 40th birthday in Las Vegas.
Did you throw your pants?
No, I didn't. Not any of them. We don't.
Any of your pants or any of the acts that you?
Well,
I wasn't wearing any.
Yeah. The casino had been evacuated if I started chucking my pants around. Trust me.
So Vegas obviously is a massive hit. Bruges. It's funny because obviously I haven't been to Vegas and I haven't been to Bruges, and then I actually haven't been to sort of Brussels, Bruges. I haven't really done Amsterdam, so that's sort of area. I haven't really done that.
TBR does Brussels and Bruges 2021.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
To be fair, we've probably got more chance of that than Vegas, if I'm honest. But you never know. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you now, because bit of research and stuff. If I was to say to you, which is the city? The city in the world that attracts the most visitors. So this was in 2020, so it was updated in August. So the city that attracts the most visitors. Now, in terms of visitors, this would be classed as international travel, stopping for at least one night.
Okay.
So it's not your national stuff. It'll be international travellers.
So is that not Vegas? I don't know for 2020. It's normally Vegas. 2019.
It's not Vegas.
Okay, because that is the most visited city for the last 10.
No, I wonder. Years. Now it's funny because when I was having a quick look, and this was from I think it's like Travel Info. So and I corroborated it with a couple of different places, and I wonder whether or not Vegas is there. Do they get quite a lot of like national visitors? So do they get quite a lot of Americans going? Yeah, so I wonder whether that might be. So we're talking about international visitors. So where do you think it would be?
Would Dubai be up on the list?
Dubai is up on the list, but it's not number one. So Dubai is very close. I'll just consult my notes because I think Dubai is fourth. So if I give you, so Dubai is fourth with 15.93 million international visitors.
He gives a clue as to what continent.
Well,
so go eastern.
Bangkok.
Correct.
No, I was good. To be fair, I was going to go Bangkok.
So Bangkok has 22.78 million international visitors, and that's classed as non-nationals stopping for at least one night. And it's part of the place, part of the world that I've never been. I would love.
Been to India, but I've not been to Thailand.
Well, it's funny because you look at Bangkok as being the city with the highest. Thailand is not the country with the highest.
Really?
So, which country do you think has the most visitors, international visitors? Because if you've got Bangkok as a city, so which country do you think it would be? And this surprised me a lot.
China.
No, didn't even make the list.
There you go.
Andy, where do you think? Country that attracts the most visitors?
I was debating whether it was going to be like somewhere random like Cyprus or something like that. Yeah, I don't think
It isn't Wales. It isn't Wales. It isn't Wales.
I mean, it'd just be the US.
US is on the list, but actually it's France.
Under France, but no.
So again, my extensive research. So France attracts 89 million international visitors a year.
That's pretty impressive.
I know, and so it literally is. It's actually like number one. And so if I went through the list, so basically you're looking at top 10. So France with 89, Spain second, America third, and then you got China, Italy, Turkey, Mexico.
You said China was on the list.
Top three, man. Turkey sixth, Mexico seventh, Germany eighth, Thailand ninth, and the UK 10th. The thing with Thailand is it said 38 million, of which 22 million were Bangkok, effectively. So
wow.
So obviously you look at the rest of Thailand, doesn't attract that many. But
my cousin visited Thailand. Cousin Jack, who kindly sponsors this podcast through Lemon Co.
Yeah.
And he lost his passport and visited the British Embassy. The guy who gave him a letter to say he could then pass on to the country that he was going to pass into forgot to frank it, and he ended up doing 21 days in a Thai prison, which are quite notorious. The trouble was, though, he said to my uncle before he went, he says, listen, I've heard this terrible story that if you go on and use the internet cafes, people will then go on, log onto your Facebook, send you a message asking you for so many thousands to get you out of Thai prison. So anyway, my uncle was touring Australia, actually following the rugby at the time, and got this email saying, basically, we've got your son, he's in prison. We need so many thousands to get him bailed out. And he's like, yeah, whatever. So he ended up spending 21 days in jail before he could get someone from the British Embassy to come down and actually contact my uncle to get him let out.
No way. To be fair, I mean, obviously I've met your cousin on stag evenings, and sort of maybe doesn't surprise me that's the case.
It's not that surprising.
But that's a whole different story. So yeah, so it sort of shocked me, and you do a bit of reading, and the thing that attracted the most international visitors to France, obviously you have Paris, you have the Eiffel Tower, and Paris features quite heavily in terms of the most visited city. But it mentions the countryside. Now, excuse my ignorance, but what's France got that the UK hasn't got in terms of countryside?
Wine.
Because that was
the wine is cheap.
To be fair, I didn't really think of wine, but then I was thinking like, well, why would you go there?
Yeah,
and to be fair, like I say, the UK, I think it comes in at number 10 with 36 million.
Wow.
But why would people, other than the Arc de Triomphe, the Eiffel Tower, and the obvious ones, why would they go to France? Why?
The only place I've ever visited in France is Paris.
Yeah, I mean, we've holidayed there a few times, sort of south coast, sort of southern France. But in terms of cities, I've driven through quite a few to get to where we go.
Arc de Triomphe, didn't you?
But yeah, so yeah, that was like horrendous. Yeah, well, yeah, once and once only. It's like you got like 27 lanes of traffic that like converge to like 3, and it's just like harem scaring. And these dudes that stand up there and do all this, it's like, yeah, you're not worth anything, you're not. But it's weird because I've been to Paris, but it sort of shocked me. Like, why would you go to France? I don't know. So my next question, and leading on from that, is there anywhere that you've been? And the answer might be no, but is there anywhere that you've been that you were really looking forward to going, and then actually were like really disappointed and were really let down? And I know it's a difficult question, so I'm sort of going to throw it out there, and I'm going to say Canberra, which again is in Australia. Worst city like I've ever visited. I was really up for going. Part of the same trip. Sydney was just phenomenal. My favourite city. Canberra is rubbish. There is nothing there. It was built, and it's one of the only capital cities at the time that was built knowing it was going to be a capital city. So they basically built it knowing that actually, and all it is basically it's government buildings, government houses, government buildings, government houses, and that's it. And it was awful. Hardly anything to do. Bland, and I apologise if it's changed in the last however many years, but really, really disappointed with that place particularly as a capital city.
It's a bit like Milton Keynes.
Yeah, terrible. And I apologise again if I've offended anybody from Milton Keynes. But yeah, just really disappointing. You think capital cities. I know you've been to Moscow. So you look at, you said Moscow, you look at London, you look at Washington, you look at lots of capital cities, and you think, God, that'd be fantastic. Canberra just is woeful. So that was my sort of biggest disappointment in terms of a place I was really looking forward to going and actually didn't quite live up to. So I've given you a couple of minutes now because I've spoken. Andy, anywhere that you thought, you know what, I just wasn't really sold on it, and it might be somewhere that somebody else has said go or recommended and you've been to and you thought, yeah, just bad experience there.
There's a few caveats. So one, I went in winter. Two, I had a bit of a cold, so I had a banging headache. And when you're on a plane and you get off it, your ears pop, but then they don't fully pop, so you get a headache and stuff like that. I had all this. But Berlin. So yeah, we went there, I think it was 2018 winter, December time sort of thing, and it was freezing cold. It's like minus summer. And there's a lot of history there. Like we did a few museums and stuff like that, but couldn't find like an old school sort of bar or anything like that. They're all quite modernish and quite bland, I thought. And I think it's mainly just because I was ill. That's probably what I'll put it down to. But I was a bit disappointed because I was expecting like, these dead historic bars and stuff like that.
And obviously you enjoying your craft beers and all that sort of stuff.
Just drink, any drink.
Okay, Ad?
For me personally, I've always managed to find something wherever we've gone that I've enjoyed. The one place that springs to mind where we went, and it wasn't so much me, it was that I loved it, Kim hated it and would never go back. And it was actually our first foreign holiday together. We went to Athens.
Right.
Now, that was my first visit to Greece, and I absolutely loved it, the culture and everything. To see, the Acropolis and the history of the place, for me, absolutely loved it. We went in 2006, and the heat hit about 48 degrees at one point, so it was hot. It was hot. And Kim hated every minute of it. She wasn't interested in history. She was fed up with me dragging around all these different historical places. And she got no. And also, we stayed in the hotel, and literally they basically said, if you go that way, at night, you're probably going to get murdered. If you go that way, you're probably going to get raped. Okay, we'll just stay here then.
But it's weird because I quite like sort of Greek islands. I mean, me and Jenny, we love Cyprus, and it didn't sort of feature in terms of a city because there's not one city that I really enjoy going to, but sort of as an island, we really enjoy Cyprus. Me and Jenny have been 3 or 4 times, taking the kids 2 or 3 times. First time we went, it was like boiling hot, 43, 44 degrees, whatever. And whenever we've taken kids back to sort of some of the Greek islands, we went to was it Rhodes this year, and kids loved it. It was great, just the laid back attitude and the laid back nature of the island and stuff. So do you wonder whether or not it was it the heat with Kim, or was it the history, the culture? What?
I think it just wasn't the sort of holiday that she was used to.
Right.
She is one of those people. If she was on this podcast now, I'd be giving you the reasons why you visit the different places in France, because that's what they've always done.
Right.
As their holidays.
Right.
They go and rent a villa in France, south of France, and enjoy the countryside. So it wasn't what she was used to. It was a city, and Athens is a very busy city. And to be honest, I loved every second of it. However, we went in, I'm going to say early August or maybe late July. So it was always going to be hot. And then I forget whether it was Celtic or Rangers were playing somebody in the early stages. And it was a fantastic city. And we go and spend our time in the main plaza. And then one day it was just Scottish football.
You see, that was spoiled. Yeah, that was spoiled for me.
Took the shine off it for But for me, I loved it. I love seeing the different historical sites there.
I went there on my own in 2008, and I went there for like 9 days or something like that, and it's brilliant. It's like I went in November time, I think it was. So it was about 25, 30 degrees. So it wasn't roasting for me. And then you start meeting like random people, like the guy who worked in the bar in my hotel was Welsh. So he took me around a couple of places. You're eating in Applebee's at like midnight and stuff like that. It's dead weird. It's proper 24-hour city.
Oh yeah.
And then just wander around. You just like meet random people and stuff like that. And yeah, I loved it. I won't go in when it's 40 odd degrees though.
No, it was hot. No. It was hot. It was horribly hot.
Yeah, we went first time. I think me and Jenny went to Cyprus, and we stayed in a place called Protaris, which is lovely. It's just down from sort of Fig Tree Bay, and actually we've subsequently gone back. And Fig Tree Bay, we feel as though it's gone a little bit, actually, sort of a bit like Blackpool. We sort of said, whereas it's just overpopulated, overcrowded. You can't get. Whereas when we went, literally Fig Tree Bay, there was beautiful sweeping bay, and there was like a cafe restaurant with a massive fig tree growing in the middle of it, and hence the name. But it was 43, 44 degrees, and we were walking down, and this is how long ago it was. It's sort of pre-mobile phone days, really, or maybe they were like the massive brick ones that you sort of had. But I think we were trying to sort of basically walk to a phone box to phone home to say, yeah, we're here and everything's okay. And I remember Jenny's wearing these a bit like jelly shoes, and they were literally sticking to the, as you're walking down the pavement, I literally they were sticking. It's like, yeah, you need to bend them off. And so we got to the hotel, we got back to the hotel, and they were saying, we were sort of got chatting to some of the staff, and they were saying that the 2 weeks before they had to close all the outdoor pools because it's too hot. So literally they said it was hotter than it was there, and they were saying to people, you have to stay inside because it's too hot. People are dying of sunstroke and they're going outside and all this sort of stuff. So, but we loved it, and that would be a place. So as an island, so it sort of did, as I say, it didn't get into my cities, but as an island, that's a place that we would go to. So okay, let's bring it slightly closer to home then. I know we talk about around. So favourite UK city that you've been to, and the reasons why. Then, Andy, go first.
I'd probably just go for York. It's
yeah.
There's a lot there. There's some fair fun, like history and museums and stuff like that. There's a lot of outdoor areas, so if you go in summer, it's pretty good. There's some like really good bars there. And the restaurants and stuff like that.
So beer again for Andy.
Surprisingly
it's
enough.
A common theme. It's a common theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, York's probably one of my favourite places to visit. We've been there quite a few times. UK?
Yeah, UK.
I love Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Do love Edinburgh. That's a fantastic city to visit. The ghost walks at night.
Yeah.
The places you can grab a drink. We did a comedy club while we were there the last time, I think, and that was phenomenal. I love Manchester. It's just up the road. You can't knock that place. I've had some great nights out in Manchester, and obviously you've got the history of Morrissey up there as well. Salford's Lad Club there on St Ignatius Walk. But to be honest, London, I don't think you can fault London.
Yeah,
one of the best cities in the world.
It is, and it's funny because London appears number 3 in the most visited cities, and so number 1 was Bangkok, number 2 was Paris, London was number 3 with sort of 19 million international visitors. So it does rank quite highly. I love London. Me and Jenny taking the kids, we love London. But I think for me, Oxford.
You used to work there, didn't you?
Yeah, so my first teaching post was down in Oxford. And I love Oxford. And it's strange because where I taught, it's actually quite a rough school. And when you talk about Oxford, people sort of, they think of Oxford as being quintessentially Morse. So if you watch it, and literally they think that is Oxford, the lovely sort of colleges and universities. I worked in a place called Cowley, which is just on the outskirts, which is slightly rougher, slightly more multicultural and stuff. But Oxford as a city is great. It is the archetypal sort of academia city, but we've taken kids back there a few times, and you can the walks you've got and the restaurants and stuff. So Oxford for me is London is amazing. You've got hustle and bustle, and obviously we go to London Triangle once a year for NFL and stuff. and I can't fault London. It's amazing. But I think for me, Oxford is just something serene and calm about it as a city. I love going there. It's brilliant. Okay, so my next question then, throwing it out there. A city that you desperately would love to go to that you actually haven't, and again, the reasons why you would want to go there. So, Andy, put Andy on the spot first.
Worldwide.
Worldwide. So, is there somewhere that you haven't been that effectively what I'm asking is, forget the country, but sort of city, like bucket list number one. So where is the place that you haven't yet been that you would love to go to, and why?
I'd probably go LA. Beijing's up there, but LA, I think. I had a choice of holidays like 10 years ago when I was going to go on my own, and it was either LA for 5 nights and then Vegas for 5 nights, or go Hamburg and watch Staines play. I chose Hamburg. But LA's always tickled my fancy. I don't know why. Because I'm not a sun person or a beach person. Yeah, that's predominantly what's there, isn't it? I'll go for LA. I'll go for.
Okay. It's that shocked me, Andy. I
didn't surprise me.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to say that.
I didn't expect him to say that.
I
was expecting him to say something. Although there is an area in LA called the Bermuda Triangle.
Right.
So that might be why he wants to go there.
Yeah, you see. Look at his little cheeky grin there. You see, he knows about that place, doesn't he, already? So what about yourself?
So the one place I want to visit.
That you haven't already been?
That I haven't already been.
Because you've been to quite a few decent places, to be fair.
Yeah, that's quite a tough question.
Yeah, that's why I asked it, mate.
The one place I want to nail. Hong Kong is one place I'd like to visit. Same as yourself. I think when we did the food episode, you sort of said you'd like to go and try the different aspects. So Hong Kong is pretty high on my list. But the other place, and hopefully, touch wood, all goes well, I get to go there next year, is Tulsa, Oklahoma. To catch up with Tilly in China. Looking forward to that. Are you definitely
going to do that?
Yeah, 100%. But like I say, my family are from about 90 miles away from there, in McAllister, Oklahoma. So that's one place.
Is that Bo?
No, well, Bo lives in San Antonio now.
Okay.
But yeah, Bo is my cousin, and obviously we share a grandfather, and his mother was from McAllister.
Right, okay.
So I'd like to visit there. Because, when I've traced my family roots back, they seem to be centered around Oklahoma, because obviously being part of Cherokee, Oklahoma being the old Indian state, you look into the Trail of Tears, that's the epicenter of that. So I'd like to visit there and just find some of the origins of my family.
Yeah, nice. It's difficult for me. I haven't been to many. I was very lucky to go to Australia when I was 17, so I've sort of done Brisbane, which is a fantastic city. Sydney is amazing. Melbourne, I would love to go to. Being a massive sports fan, everybody said if you go to Melbourne, it's sports city. It's brilliant. So that would be there. I've always said I'd quite like to do India. And I've got a friend, Ashwin, who has said if we ever go over there, he would treat us.
They are cricket mad over there.
Yeah.
That's one thing that threw me, because obviously England, we have cricket, we have rugby, but let's face it, it's football, isn't it?
Yeah.
And over there, they love cricket.
Yeah, India is literally like, your David Beckham equivalent would be a cricketer, And that's how I met Ash, and Ash came over when I was captain of Osage, and he came over and was all overseas, and we obviously became friends and stuff, and he basically said, if ever you come to India, you can come and stay with us. We will treat you very well. We'll show you all the sights and stuff. So parts of India, and I've never done it, and I'd quite like to go. I have a strange fascination with Moscow. It's a place that I feel as though I should go. It's a place that I feel as though, and I know you've been in, I'll ask you about your experiences there in a minute, and it's sort of a place that intrigues me as to what it's like. Desperately want to go to Vegas. Desperately want to go to Vegas. Just to see how much money I can lose. That's it.
We need
for no other reason.
TBR does Vegas for you, LA for Andy. I'll just tag along. I'm happy with either of those places.
Throw in Seattle as well.
Yeah, and so
music,
Pittsburgh maybe.
Well, you mentioned Pittsburgh. Chicago obviously is a Bears fan. I've never been. Steve obviously is now.
Antioch.
He sort of lives sort of Chicago areas, Chicago region, and I would love to go there. And I've always said that it's my kind of town.
And they got a rubbish football team.
Yeah.
Whoa, 3-0. 3-0.
This from an 0-3 Lions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I can't believe I know. I don't mean heckled by a Lions fan.
Yeah, 2020's a write-off.
So I was having a bit of a cop out there because I've mentioned sort of 3 or 4 places. It's hard to pin. It's hard to pin down. My father-in-law said Washington DC is amazing. Like going Washington is, and I always think a bit like Canberra, a bit dull. It's just a bit of, But so it's hard for me to pin one down. If I was going to say somewhere, I think it'd probably be Chicago.
Mm.
I've got a massive pull there, and there's loads of places in the world I want to go to, loads of bucket list places. Being a golfer, obviously Augusta, I'd love to go to, but I think I've got a pull to Chicago, so I think that would be the place for me that I'd want to go to. But I do have this fascination with Moscow, and I mean, I'm interested in what, I know you're a lot younger, but what your experiences of Moscow were, and would you go back?
I'd like to go back, to be honest, just to see the differences, because like you say, I was quite young when I visited there. I think it was about 16 or 17. So I visited during the Gorbachev era.
Right.
And just talking to people there and their frustrations with that guy, our view from the West was the difference he was making were phenomenal.
Yeah.
But they were getting frustrated with him that the differences that he was making weren't fast enough, which really, really surprised me. And there was a real juxtaposition while I was there in terms of richness, the rich people. So you'd see absolutely battered larders, which they were famous for.
Yeah.
And then it'd be followed by some huge stretch limo and the gold on the temples. And just when we were in the hotels, I always remember I was one day I was walking down the hotel. We were heading out for breakfast, and just had this guy grab me from behind and threw me against the wall. And I was like, gee, what's going on, dude? There's this big guy. He's like, he wanted me to prove I wasn't Russian, because he thought I was a Russian guy who had infiltrated the hotel. Because Russian people weren't allowed in the hotels. Only Western people were allowed in there at that time. It was
wow.
Like, seriously? And he's pulling his badge out and yelling at me, and Russia's like, seriously, I don't know what's going on here.
To be fair, he must have been quite a big bloke, because even back in the day, you were probably 6'4", 6'5". What's he doing?
Yeah, but I've always been a lover of that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that always struck me in there, it was, obviously I went at 16, and the level of prostitution that was there. Like, we were in the hotels. I think I was on the 30th floor or something like that of the hotel, and I don't like lifts. Even to this day, I get claustrophobic in lifts, so I'd use the stairs, and you'd walk past all the different prostitutes on the stairs on the way. So how they got in there, I don't know. Didn't ask.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I always think back to when I was visiting Red Square, so taking in St. Basil's Cathedral, Lenin's tomb, and then this pimp comes up to me and goes, "Hey, would you like a woman?" I was like, "No, dude, I'm okay, thank you." "Okay, I have a man too." It's like, no, that isn't why I said no to that question.
Is that Borat as well?
Yeah. It's a pretty solid Borat impression, that was.
It's my sister.
It's very nice. But yeah, honestly, it was a unique experience, and culturally, I cannot tell you how vastly different it was to for living in the UK. And that was the first place I visited as a foreign holiday. And the only other place that I've been to that was as vastly different culturally was India.
Right.
Just to see the differences. It was fascinating. I'd like to go back now more as an adult, so I can soak it in and just understand it on that level.
Okay, so we closing in on sort of the hour mark, and I'm going to give you a list now. So I'm going to name some cities, and I'm going to ask you to choose one of these cities. I'm going to try and pick cities that neither of you have been to, so I apologise if you have. So, from my list, Andy, Bangkok, Dubai, Singapore, New York, Tokyo.
And what's the question that we'd like to go to?
Which one of those would you? Which one of those would you pick? So which one of those would be? So Tokyo. Okay,
Yeah.
Is that just for the gaming? Is that what it is? So that's where that's.
No, well, partly, but I suppose it's more like just the mentality. So we have an office in Tokyo, and they're just like really motivated people, and I think Tokyo is just like really high tech sort of city.
Yeah.
Just for the fact that you can go to like a vending machine and get like, I don't know how fresh it is, but you can get food from there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it's just one of them really high tech cities. So probably do that.
And just to qualify that though, that's Andy's work, not TBR. TBR does not have offices.
Not yet.
Maybe at some point.
At some point, that's our end goal.
Okay, so add same ones to you. I don't know if you can remember. So Bangkok, Dubai, Singapore, and I'll throw in for you. You've been to New York, haven't you? Yeah. So I'll throw in Kuala Lumpur or Tokyo.
But I'm going to go with Andy on Tokyo, to be honest with you. Just much for the same reasons. Because culturally, vastly different to what we're used to. Food-wise, I think it would be a revelation to visit in terms of everything they have. Obviously, the Japanese very fond of fish because of a lot of islands, so that as you'd expect, a lot of seafood. So I'd like to experience the food there. Definitely, yeah. I quite like the idea of visiting Tokyo.
Cool, right. So possibly, although I know you're not sporty, but it could be music or sport or drama or theatre or one of the arts. Is there one event, festival that that happens in a particular area or city or country in the world that you would love to go and experience that you haven't been to? So, for example, and I'll say like the Pamplona, the running of the bulls or whatever.
My brother's done that.
So
my brother's done
that. So for me, I'm just fascinated by that, and it wouldn't be my number one, but that's just an example. So is there a place? I'll cards on the table. I want to go and watch the Chicago Bears play a home game at Soldier Field. That for me is bucket list stuff. So I'm going to throw it out. There can be any city in the world where we're talking about going wherever, but there has to be an event associated with either that city. I'll even allow a country, I suppose, but ideally a city that hosts an event that you would love to go and experience that you haven't yet. Could be music, could be sport, could be drama, could be the arts, theatre, whatever it may be. Andy, what do you think?
Wow. I always wanted to go Seattle for the grunge music, like if I was young enough, or old enough actually, in the 90s, then I would have been. I suppose rock hammering. My cousin and a boyfriend have been quite a few times, and they have all like the big rock acts there. So it's like a big music festival in the centre of Nuremberg racetrack sort of thing.
Okay.
So yeah, it's probably that.
Okay, cool. Easy. Tick, done. So just before you start, so how close do you think you could get to going to that? Do you think that's something that is within your grasp? Do you think that's something that you could potentially go to?
Yeah, quite easily. Post COVID, but yeah, I think it's not a hard thing to do. I just think I've just never put the effort in to do it.
Right, but it is something that you feel as though you could do.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Ad,
probably much as yourself in terms of the NFL. Big Steelers fan. You've seen the Bears play. I've seen the Steelers play.
Yeah.
But it would be fantastic to do it. Obviously, you'd love to do it at Soldier Field. I'd like to do it at Heinz Field.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much on there. That is most definitely on my bucket list. But for me, it's one of those things. And you talk about COVID. And actually, sports for me is on the back burner at the moment. Don't get me wrong. Yes, I'm an Arsenal fan. Yes, I'm a Steelers fan. But it's not that important to me right now.
Yeah.
Having spent sort of 6 months penned up with the family probably comes first. So if I was going to pick somewhere that I'd like to go, probably flashing back to Oklahoma, then I'll probably... McAllister, to me, it's up there. And will it be on my, that ranks much higher on my bucket list than visiting Pittsburgh to watch a Steelers game. So I love to.
And I know I'll be a
Steelers I love the
fan.
Steelers.
Yeah, you do love Steelers, yeah.
But if you're gonna pick an event, then I guess it would have to be Rocklahoma, just outside of Tulsa. Tilly and Shana have been to it a few times. They shared some on their podcast, some pretty entertaining stories.
Wow.
So yeah, Rocklahoma probably I'd go with.
Yeah, cool. You see, I'm a massive sports fan, and there's lots of different events. So you could turn and say, I'd love to go watch the British Lions play rugby, whether it be in New Zealand or Australia or South Africa. I've always had this strange, weird fascination with Sun City, and there's a couple of decent golf courses down there. And I was chatting to one of the guys I played golf with last weekend. He said it's an amazing place. He said he actually likened it to Las Vegas. He said it literally is like an oasis in the middle of a desert, and you just rock up and there's just this massive great big like city there, and it's weird, and he said you can get absolutely everything that you want in that city, and then you go like 5 minutes down the road and you're literally just like nothing. So I've always had a bit of a strange fascination with Sun City, and but I'd love to go to the Lions. But for me, growing up playing a lot of cricket, and this is sort of before I played a lot of golf, I was a big cricketer. It would be go to the West Indies, so Trinidad and Jamaica and all those places. Go to the West Indies, but go as part of the Barmy Army. So literally you would tour like island to island and you'd go. So for me, if those magic numbers come in, that would be the one experience that I would love to go and have, would be just to travel around, just to go and watch the England guys play cricket, but go as part of the Barmy Army. So you go and you have to do beers, and Jenny might not forgive me for this, but go with your mates and maybe not your wife and your kids, sort of thing, being very sort of selfish and stuff. So that as an experience for me is I've never been to the West Indies, would love to go. Jenny's been on my wife, she's been with her mum and dad when she was younger, sort of family holidays and stuff, but more of your traditional sort of sandals, resort type, sort of beachy type holiday. So for me, yeah, that'd be great, but to go on the Barmy Army, and loads of listeners out there go, oh, what's the Barmy Army? It's basically a group of travelling supporters that follow the team around to the various islands, and it's basically just an excuse for middle-aged men just to go and drink lots of alcohol excessively for a 3, 4, 5 week period when you're in the West Indies. So that for me would be a sort of place that I would love to go and see, love to go and experience. I've just noticed the time, we're just over an hour mark, so I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to ask one last question of Andy and Adam, and I'm not going to answer this. Being hosts of TBR, where is the one place that you would want TBR to broadcast from, knowing that it would be me, Adam, and Andy? So the three of us, where would be your place? And it doesn't necessarily have to be that realistic, but where would, knowing all of our interests and knowing what we are all into, because we are quite diverse, where would the one place be that you would want to go to as TBR and host a podcast? And I'm going to switch it around, and I'm going to give you some time to think about this. I've bullied you all night. Adam, you're first.
Okay. Lynchburg, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
It's a dry county, so that's problematic because we couldn't have a drink while we were doing it.
Well, that's off the list straight away then.
But
That sounds awful. Why do we want to go there?
Because it's where they make Jack Daniels.
Okay.
And I'd like to visit that place.
Okay.
Failing that, it would probably be somewhere in Kentucky where they make a bourbon. So Louisville, Kentucky, or
so I'm hosting that, and you guys are just getting drunk on whiskey.
Messed up. Just somewhere, yeah. If we went to, I have no interest in horse racing. You could enjoy that.
Yeah.
If we did the Kentucky
Derby, that
famous for horse racing, famous for bourbon, somewhere like that. I think that's somewhere we could absolutely revel in it.
I like that idea.
It's got a great. It's got legs.
Oh, yeah, it has definitely got legs. Andy.
Funnily enough, I was thinking somewhere in the States as well. Maybe like New Orleans or something like that, somewhere where they got all the
yes.
New Orleans,
grilled meats or whatever. That excited is me.
I got
spilling whiskey all over. Hate the stuff. The man down. So New Orleans, I'm dripping in.
I apologise, but I got too excited. But no, New Orleans is one place I would love to visit.
Yeah, New Orleans. Yeah,
that's on my list of places.
Yeah, 100%. I think New Orleans is a great shout actually because you've got the flavours, the food, you've got that sort of jazzy, bluesy sort of feel going on. Other than the Saints, I would watch the Saints, but so yeah, New Orleans is. I would really like, and I suppose it goes back to, and I haven't really done it, and that's why, but maybe do it a TBR from Amsterdam. I've never, and it's somewhere that I think we could possibly potentially do.
It's not too expensive to visit.
Andy obviously has experience of that region of the world and stuff, so. And you could go all, let's do it from the top of the Burj Khalifa or whatever, and it's just like, well, that's not going to happen, is it? But somewhere that we actually could do
from a coffee shop.
Yeah,
shop on Leaders Point.
Yeah, from we let's go and experience somewhere else, and could we do that? Yes, and it'd be brilliant. And as I say, you could turn around and say, well, we'll go and do it in Moscow or wherever, but that's unlikely. And I know I threw it out there, but for me, quite close to home, Andy could be this sort of tour guide. He could be the leader of that podcast. And it's look, did you see his face then?
I did, yeah.
So for me, so just somewhere like Amsterdam, just a sort of.
Are you throwing this out there rather than it being, obviously I've mentioned the different places, Andy, but you're thinking actually we could actually do this?
Yeah. So, and I know you threw, and don't get me wrong, it would be amazing to go to America. It would be amazing, and actually, if we could meet up Tiddy and Shine and we can go somewhere and do something with them, it would be fantastic. And you could argue, say, well, actually, could we go to Edinburgh and do something with Dave from Double Trouble? Yes. And, which I think we're going to do. We're going to try and do anyway with the darts.
Get him on.
But, yeah, just to go and do something that I haven't. So I've never been. And I'm sort of curious about sort of Holland, Belgium, that sort of region, the sort of lifestyle, what it would be like. So I'm going to throw that out there and say, might not be 2021 because Andy's got about 15 different trips planned for us in 2021. But I'm going to throw it out there in 2022. There will be a TBR podcast from, I'm going to throw it out there, Amsterdam, Brussels, or Bruges. One of those three.
I'll sign up for all three of those.
Yeah, but you can only pick one. So we can do one. So I'm going to throw that out there. Loads of places I want to go to. Loads of places that are on my bucket list. Loads of places that you guys have mentioned that whetted my appetite. You know what? Actually, that sounds amazing. But I'm going to throw it out there. TBR, Amsterdam, Bruges, Brussels. We're going to do a podcast from there. And that would be class for me. So that's my questions done, dusted. I've enjoyed picking your brains as to where you've been, what your thoughts are, where you'd like to go. I'd like to do a bit of a follow-up, and I've got a couple of questions that I'm not going to ask now because we're 1 hour, 7 minutes. So I'm going to leave that, and I want to next time want to discuss the types of holidays that you like, as opposed to the places.
Yeah,
it's more the types of holidays, the experiences. Because I'm curious. Because I don't know. You mentioned Andy. You mentioned different types of places. Adam, you mentioned different types of places. So I'm going to leave that. there definitely will be a cities follow-up, but it's going to be more of a what experiences. So more bucket list type places, but you can't just have city after city after city. There have to be different experiences. So,
Cool.
So I'm going to leave that out there. I think the last thing for me to say is I've enjoyed hosting it again, and I really enjoy being in the driver's seat and throwing the questions out to Ad and Andy and seeing the shoe on the other foot, particularly for Adam. Can't wait to see what Andy's going to lead. Genuinely can't wait to see what he's going to come up with in terms of the episode that he leads. So we'll wait with bated breath. That look at his cheeky little grin there.
Brussels 2022.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm no problem with that. I'm okay with that. That's fine. So yeah, loved it again, guys. So Andy, do you want to say goodbyes?
Yeah, another different episode. Quite a chilled out one, and enjoyed it. See you later.
Adam?
Yeah, thank you very much. Nice to be on the other side of it again. Like I said, I enjoyed it last time, enjoyed it this time. No doubt we'll enjoy it the next time as well. So I'm looking forward to that. So thank you for listening, guys.
And you got to throw a whiskey all over Gaz as well.
Yeah,
always
always a treat. Yeah. So again, thank you very much, guys, for listening. Love being in the driver's seat. And until next time, when no doubt we will have lots more irrelevant stuff to talk about. It's been a pleasure. See you later.